Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time and spending it once again with us. I'm Owen Devereux, news reporter with the Banner Press. Glad to be here today. I am joined this week by Kira Paterson. Kira, good to have you here.
Yeah, I guess.
You can just sense the enthusiasm.
So enthusiastic.
Positive energy.
Oh,
It's
yes.
just like, yeah. Well, let's get right into it, talking about what we've been hard at work at all week in terms of getting the stuff done. And Kira, it's kind of interesting, before we get into the news of it, your week was a little bit different in that you had to take on a whole different job this
Yeah,
week.
I actually wrote 0 stories for this week's paper, but I have a half-decent reason for that.
But half of her work is still on the page here.
Yeah, Diane, our ad builder, took a couple days off at the beginning of the week. I took a couple days off at the end of last week, which is when I would have started working on stories, but I didn't because I wasn't here. And then I came back Monday and Diane was away, and so I got to take over the role of being ad person for a couple days. So that was kind of fun. It was interesting. I always enjoy the variety, so I don't mind doing it at all. But yeah, I didn't have time to do any stories this week.
Because again, for most people that don't realize that, what you see in terms of the constructed ads, all the icons, all the information, all the classified stuff as well, the vast majority of that is built in-house right here at the Neepawa Banner Press. There are some companies that will build it and send it our way. There are some that are done through the Manitoba Communities Newspaper Association, which is sort of the governing body of all the these types of papers in Manitoba. But for the vast majority of it, it's built either by Diane or this week by Kira. So give that a little bit of thought the next time you're browsing through and looking at all the different ads, and especially the classifieds. Oh my God, I would not want to do the classifieds.
That was the majority of what I actually did this week. Like, Diane had done stuff on Thursday, Friday for this week, just to kind of get ahead for me so that I only had to worry about what came in Monday, Tuesday, and a little bit over the weekend.
Yeah.
And the majority of what comes in kind of last minute is usually classified stuff anyway. So that was a lot of what I was doing this week. So that was fun. Lots of words and in tiny little boxes and formatting and that kind of thing. But luckily Diane has built those types of ads for years, so I had some examples to go off of and to kind of almost use as a template for what I was doing.
Well, again, let me throw this out at you then, because again, anyone who watches the show knows I don't really pay that much attention to the actual ads. Much like Diane, if you've ever talked to her, doesn't pay that much actual attention to the news that's written here. It's just the way it is. But which ads, because we have continuing ones. What one was a one that you built? We're going to give this particular company a little bit of a shout out.
Okay.
Which ones did you have to? I imagine the Roxy Theater, did you have to build that one?
No, Diane had gotten that one done ahead of time, so that was good. I had to do the Remax ad. That came in on Tuesday, I think.
Oh,
so
okay.
I got to do that one. But that one is nice because it's got a template. I did one for the Carberry. I think it was the town of Carberry booked a thank you ad from their homecoming, which we have a story on. And then a lot of these not the Board of Revision ones, but the Notice of Election. I did a lot of the Notice of Election ads in this week.
That was a special, obviously, because it is election year in terms of a municipal level. But you got to have fun with those before it was all said and done.
Yes. Now I know every municipality and school division that's having elections.
Yeah. That's the truth of the business. Every single word, every single paragraph, every single thing you see has been built by somebody there. So great work that you were able to get that done. And even though you don't have a byline in many spots here in this week's edition, or anywhere, that's still half the paper is pretty much Kira right now. So good work on that.
I appreciate you recognizing my efforts.
Now you can just coast for the rest of the show.
Exactly.
As we talk about the news.
Because I didn't have anything to do with that.
The coolest part of any newspaper. But let's start off with the front page. Obviously, always the best place to begin. Casper Weirhan was able to go down to Carberry over the weekend and check out the homecoming in Carberry. Specialty events that were going on, welcoming people back into the community, whether they were former representatives or residents of Carberry or new, and just welcoming. It was great, and it seemed like a lot of fun. Looking at the front page, checking out the museum and the gingerbread house. Again, for those that are unfamiliar with what the gingerbread house is, it's essentially a house built in Carberry in the 1800s that honestly looks like something you get when you build a gingerbread house yourself. Just the entire motif of the exterior of it gives it that sort of charm. And you can see that it's right on the front page of this week's edition of the Banner Press, if you want to get a look at it. As well, there are additional pictures that Casper took of the tours and all the different festivities that were going on in Carberry during the weekend. So if you weren't able to be down there on your physically to sort of see it, you'll be able to get a second chance in this week's edition of the paper. Now, we got to shift very quickly into something a little more serious, obviously, for the front page of the paper, but I hope you look at this as more of a celebration of an individual, or as opposed to sort of being disheartened or disappointed or sad by it, because it's a legacy that very few of us can say that we have. As we talked about in a recent episode of Story Behind the Stories, and in regard to last week's edition of the paper, Gladwin Scott finished up his run with our paper, saying that the health was not as good and just would not be able to continue with the weekly sort of reviews of Carberrian area. We understood that. We knew that he was feeling under the weather. I got to admit myself, I didn't realize to the degree. If you haven't heard, Gladwin Scott passed away last Thursday, I should say. So essentially almost a week to the day. It is a week to the day that we're recording this right now. Gladwin's daughter, Michelle, who we'd interact with, she would always send us the information via email, informed me Friday morning, so I had the disappointing task of informing everyone in the office, and not Kira. Kira was away that day. Kira had to learn about it obviously later in the week, early this week, but had to learn of his passing. 90 years old, a tremendous individual. And that story is on the front page of the paper as well. And it's, like I said, it is a celebration. I hope it to be a celebration of the life and legacy of Gladwin Scott and what it meant to athletics and sports in Manitoba, because it meant a lot. I knew a fair amount of this, but in doing some of the research, which I went through some archives and I went through a release from the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame was filling in a lot of that information. Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame filled in a fair amount of that information. Even the things I knew were impressive enough, but the things I didn't even realize Gladwin had accomplished in his lifetime just were exceptional, even above and beyond. He was big into baseball, obviously. He had been enshrined into both the Manitoba Baseball Hall of Fame and the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame as a player, as a coach, a manager through the years, as a builder. He was a member of the very first Canadian baseball team to participate in the Pan American Games back when they were taking place in Winnipeg, I believe in '67. A huge, monumental occurrence there. The Canadian team, nobody was expecting anything of them. Ended up defeating the Cuban national team at the '67 games. Cuba, obviously a huge baseball nation, a powerhouse when it comes to international play. So that is, to a degree, it's almost like to compare it to a miracle on ice, so the United States and the Soviet Union. It was a similar thing to that. Obviously, different Pan American Games on a smaller scale than the Olympics, but still significant nonetheless. He had worked as a scout, a Western Canadian scout for the Toronto Blue Jays in the late 80s into the early 90s during their most successful run, when they won multiple World Series. He then moved over to the Atlanta Braves and worked as a regional scout for them. Again, when the Braves won their one World Series in the 90s, back in '95, he was a part of the team. So very successful in those ways. Hockey-wise, a great legacy as well. Even, this is the thing I found out, and I didn't realize, is his legacy for high school athletics. He was one of the individuals who spearheaded and helped to found the Manitoba High School Athletics Association, which still works to this day to sort of structure athletics on a high school level. Very important. He was a big part of so many different facets. But the thing is, and I hope you take this away with you on this, he was a wealth of information. Even it was just about 10 days ago, not 10 days ago, maybe about 2 weeks ago, I spoke to him on the phone because he'd phone up almost each and every week. And he'd always start off the same way. He always had a chipper attitude. And he phoned up, it was, "Hi, Gladwin," and he always sort of, and pardon me, I'm paraphrasing slightly here. "How are you doing, Gladwin?" "Oh, I'm above ground and the sun's shining, so you can't complain." Mm-hmm. He'd always say something like that or something to that degree. When you're above ground and when the sun's shining down on you, you can't have a bad day. And it's like, it sounds, maybe it's like, yeah, it's a good sort of mindset. But when you see and you have things like this happen, the mindset takes on a little more significance. Because he appreciated each and every day. He saw it as the gift that it is. Unfortunately, Kira, many of us, maybe we don't see it that way because we keep thinking, you know what, we've got the time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when you're younger, maybe you do. I mean, as you get older like me, trust me, Kira, one of these days you're going to get old like me.
Oh, dang.
It's surprisingly enough, your 20s don't last forever.
Really?
Exactly. But you start realizing that, and you sort of, he appreciated that. He appreciated the time. 90 years old, that's a good number. That's a good, solid number. And the legacy that this gentleman left behind was indelible. And this legacy that he leaves behind is something that everyone in Manitoba, in one way or another, is going to be able to enjoy, whether it was through baseball, whether it was through hockey, high school athletics, all of that. And I've known him, I talked a little bit about this last week, in one way or another since 2006, when I was working for a radio station in Brandon, CKLQ 880 at the time, 94.7 Star FM, and I'd have interactions to a degree with him then. Not to the same degree. As the years progressed, when I worked at Portage la Prairie, obviously more, and here in Neepawa, much more interactions that I had with him on a consistent basis. Got to know him, he'd share stories and details, and it is appreciated. And like I said, this, I hope you read this and see this as a celebration of the individual. I wish I was able to delve a little bit deeper into his time in history. I did the best I could with the circumstances that we had to deal with in terms of time restraints and whatnot. But all I gotta say is any and every interaction I ever had with Gladwin Scott was a pleasure and a privilege. So that's all I really gotta say about that for now, other than thank you, Gladwin. Mm-hmm. But I don't know, there's nothing I think I can add to this right now, so.
Mm-hmm. No, I would just say definitely take some time to read that story. I only really knew of Gladwin after the Carberry paper closed and we started getting stories from him. So I don't have the same knowledge of him. I never had the same type of interactions with him as Eoin, but reading that story, you really learn a lot, and it's amazing to see all of the things that he did. And Eoin did a great job on that story, so definitely take some time and give that a read. Yeah.
And again, I mean, you reach that certain age, you start to lose things along the way. This 2022, let's be honest, has not been the best of years. Gladwin Scott passing away, Ivan Trail, a pioneer for NACTV, passing away, a good personal friend of mine, Alan Gillies, passing away. And just appreciate those while you can, okay? I don't think that's too much to ask. So that's that. So let's shift our attention to some other things right now. There are many other stories here in this week's paper. Mm-hmm. And one of them was a positive, a progressive one for Cats TNR and Rescue, a local nonprofit organization that looks after, obviously, cats. It's in the title. And they, along with Westman Communications Group and the Neepawa Gladstone Co-op, held a charity barbecue, a fundraising barbecue last week. It was well attended and great that they were able to bring in those numbers. Just a little over 2,000, I believe, that they brought in from the barbecue. And WCG, a company I used to work for way back in the day, Kara, they matched it. So they had over $4,000 that's going to be going to Cats TNR to help them out with that. That's great to hear.
Yeah,
it really
that's
is
amazing. Yeah, they said they have about 70 cats right now, cats and kittens, and they take care of ones they've rescued off the streets. They bring some in and get them spayed and neutered and vetted and all that kind of thing. So there is a lot of expense going behind taking care of these cats. So I think that this $4,000 is going to go a long way, and I bet you they're beyond thrilled to have had that kind of result from that barbecue.
That's right, and well attended. It's always great to be able to see the community step up in this way and help out a worthy cause. And just a little side note, we don't have it in the story because it's not actually pertinent to the story, but I just found this interesting. Wednesday was a difficult and interesting day, hearing about Gladwin's passing, but also learning about Westman Communications Group, the company I used to work for, company that owns not KX96, Star FM, and CKLQ, was always proud of being one of the only locally owned and operated radio stations in Western Manitoba still. Well, they can't say that anymore because they sent out a press release on Friday that the Paterson Group, based out of British Columbia, has purchased those radio stations, and those will be part of the Paterson partnership moving forward. And it's just one of those things. It got me a little thinking about these types of things because I still know people in that building. I saw those people at the Cats TNR event. It was a chance to sort of say, hey, long time no see, how are things going? Who's still around? Who got old? Who didn't get old? And the very next day to hear that, because there's probably a lot of uncertainty, Kira, in that building right about now. When you learn about something like that, you always fear about what's going to happen because so many locals aren't local anymore. Well, honestly, we're in a building that's an example of that. The Neepawa Press used to be a separate organization, used to be owned by Glacier Group, and it was run out of, I think they were out of British Columbia too.
I think so too, yeah.
Why do people out of BC want to buy all our stuff? Why don't they want to keep their own stuff?
Right? Stay over there, BC. We don't want you.
Ah, jeez, come on. But they ended up buying it and to a degree ended up burying it. So Ken Waddell and Chris Waddell came in and were able to purchase the legacy of the Neepawa Press. God, it's a lot about legacies nowadays. Gladwin Scott's legacy, talking about the building's legacy. It just, you start thinking about that type of stuff. You got years yet before you got to worry about that. You got 2 or 3 years where you can continue to sort of, just don't worry about it.
Do whatever.
By about 30, you got to start building your legacy, Kira.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
You're on the clock. Me, I've already screwed up mine beyond. So.
Yeah, he's already past his time to have a legacy. So.
And I screw it up every single week when I get a little too honest on this show. But that's the fun part of this show. That's the only fun part of this show, But again, it's great to be able to see Cats TNR get that and be supportive of our community in that way. Hopefully you'll be able to take a moment to check that out. It's on page A2 of this week's edition of the newspaper. Going a little further into the paper, going to be hitting the sports section here. So much more sports stuff on the go as we go into the fall. But this one was a specialty item. This one's more of a human interest as well, because Brad Hackawich and April Willis, 2 locals who are participants and were participants in the Yellowhead Bow Hunters Club, have been selected for Team Canada at the World 3D Archery Championships. This is a big deal. There's only about 25 members of Team Canada that are going to this event that's going to be starting up shortly in Italy. And they are the only 2 representatives, not just from Neepawa, but from Manitoba that are a part of it. They went to the trials back in June in Alberta. It was a multi-day competition, pardon me, and they did tremendously well. And this was the creme de la creme, the best of the best in Canada, and they are a part of it. So I had an opportunity to speak with both April and Brad. Was able to track down Brad just before we went to print there, fortunately, and get a comment from him on that and their perspective on what they went into the event thinking they were going to do, what they were hoping they were going to do, and what they accomplished, and what it means to them on a personal level to be able to represent Canada on a national, on a global stage in this way, and what they hope to take away from it. These are the types of stories that you always like to be able to share with you, whether it's here on the show or whether it's on the page. Hopefully you are picking up an actual physical copy of the paper. That'd be much appreciated. But if you check it out here on NAC TV, no matter where, educate yourself on the goings-on in and around your community. That's very important. And the people in and around your community, like April, like Brad, they're going above and beyond. So got to wish them the best of luck on that. Hopefully when they come back and we do a story, a follow-up story, they'll be holding gold medals.
That would be so exciting.
But no pressure, no pressure. Just making it to this level is still
Oh, yeah.
an accomplishment unto itself, I think.
Yeah, I mean, just getting to go to Italy, that's a big bonus too.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's tremendous that they were able to do it, and hopefully, like I said, we'll follow up on that in the near future. All right, a little closer to home. Neepawa Titans hockey team. We talk about them each and every winter because, you know, what else is there? It's too cold to go out and do anything other than that sometimes. But their training camp is going to be starting up shortly. And by shortly, I mean within 24 hours of recording of this show. We're doing it on Thursday the 1st. Early on the 2nd of September, they're going to be out on the ice getting ready for the upcoming Manitoba Junior Hockey League season. An opportunity to speak with Ken Pearson about what his expectations are, how many returning players are going to be here, and what they hope will be accomplished from this weekend. I know you're not a big hockey fan, Kira, but they're feeling optimistic about what they're going to be able to do out there this year. And, oh God, considering all the last decade, that's great. That is fantastic. Playoffs is a legitimate, something they could be shooting for, and maybe even just hosting a game or two.
Yeah, well, before the season starts, it's always good to be optimistic that you could win all the games because you haven't lost any yet. So.
Exactly. and nobody's going to be. There's certain teams this year that are not going to do well. You don't want to be that team. You want to be honest, but you don't want to be too honest. It's like, oh yeah, no, we stink. No, we're going to be lucky to win 10 games this year. That does not make for good community engagement. Fortunately, I don't believe that's the case for this year's version of the team. And hopefully they will be able to compete in the Western Division of the Manitoba Junior Hockey League. It's open. It's so wide open right now. Dauphin won the division and won the league last year. They were a top-tier team, competed on the national level. A lot of their big names and the players that pushed them to that level are gone, though. They've aged out. So this is a division that's up for grabs. And Neepawa needs to be going into the season not just thinking, we can make the playoffs, but thinking we can have home ice advantage. We can win the division. We can go far. That's definitely the mindset it feels like they have. They got about 15 returning players. They've just made a deal for another player who has MJHL experience, Braden Knox, who played for OCN last year, based out of the Carberry area, so a local kid. It's going to be nice to have a local kid coming back there. I'm sure he's going to be able to appreciate it. Because, for his parents and friends and family,
it's a much shorter drive.
It's a heck of a commute from Carberry to the Paw.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he much more appreciates sort of a commute from Carberry to Neepawa. But very much looking forward to that, especially with the weather the way it is right now. It'll be nice to go into the arena where it's nice and cool and just stay cool. All right, so we're wrapping near the end of this right now. Let's talk about Fun Fest.
Yeah.
We got a picture montage on the back of the paper. Myself, John Drinkwater, and Diane Warner all separately were able to go out there and see some of the festivities that went on. Casper Wehrhan did a sort of a montage on the back of the paper like this. I think it turned out great and some very interesting pictures.
Oh, yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I got nothing else.
That's all you got? Okay.
Yep.
I thought you were going to continue your sentence there, but no, it looked really cool. I wasn't there obviously because I was out of town, but I just thought it was funny that there was 3 people from the office that all ended up going and taking some pictures. I guess it was a popular spot to be that weekend. But yeah,
the fact that they advertised didn't hurt either.
It's true.
Let's be honest about that.
Yeah, you always you know that it's coming when there's an ad in the paper, so then we can be there.
Yep. Like Minnedosa, like Carberry. I believe Carberry had an ad as well.
Did.
Always appreciate that. Yep. So, and but it was even above that. It was fun.
Yeah.
That was.
It was a fun fest.
It was.
Good.
It lived up to its name.
Good.
Yep. So we're coming to a close. Before we wrap up for this week, just going to share with you quickly. We got another B section. Every paper seems to have a second section
Never
as of
ends.
late. But this one is different from the Farmer's Advocate. It is Trucking Week coming up next week. So we have a celebration of the trucking industry. And those individuals that put in the time and put in the effort have real jobs, not like me sitting in this chair. This ain't a real job. They actually do real work and real important work, moving the items that keep Canada going on a daily basis. So it's a celebration of that. Always appreciative. Diane Warner, yourself, Kira Casper, put a lot of time and effort into this. I think I did nothing. Well, the little highlight things you'll see in there, I sort of put those together, but that was about it.
I mean, I found them on the website, so
She did the actual due diligence to track them down, but I just made them pretty.
I think we got a shout out to Joel too, our new staff member. He sells ads, and he did an amazing job selling ads. There's a few in here that businesses I'd never even heard of. So he did a really good job in tracking down. He sells ads for the regular section as well, and for the Farmer's Advocate and any special sections. He's learning from John and a little bit from Diane and Ken. And he is doing an awesome job at getting some more sales in there and getting some ads to fill the pages as well, because we can't just fill 8 pages just with news and photos, because then that's silly.
We could. For me, that would be the best paper ever, but that would only be the best paper for a couple weeks until we had to close the building down and put up a for sale sign. That's why it's important to share some of your details with us. When you have an event going on or you want to do some advertising, get in touch with us. It's a free paper, and that means that ads keep the doors open. So if you have any advertising you'd like to do, you can get in touch with us at sales@neepawabanner.com. But if you have a news story that you want to talk to us about, you can get in touch with me directly at news@neepawabanner.com, or call us at 476-3401. That's the number we can be reached at. They'll send it our way. We might not be able to speak for too long because, Kira might be busy building ads and I might be busy staring at the ceiling, just trying to look busy. But we'll get to you sooner or later. We try to hit every story we can. Being a small paper, we can't do it each and every time. That's just the reality of a small town paper. But we try and hit as many different aspects of community living as we can. But we can only do it with your help, with your support, either through buying ads or giving us news tips or sending us pictures or sending us news stories. Again, 476-3401, the number we can be reached at, or news@neepawabanner.com. If it's sports specific, sports@neepawabanner.com. If you want to know Akira, pages@neepawabanner.com. So
I don't get enough emails, so email me.
Yeah. But once again, that's pretty much it. We didn't even have a chance to cover almost half of what's in there. There's so many other pictures and features and interesting events that we just didn't have the time to put in this today's show. That's why you're going to have to pick up a copy of the Banner and Press or find it online at mywestman.ca. So hopefully you have a good long weekend, Labor Day weekend, and hopefully a good one for you as well, Kira.
Mm-hmm. And you.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, old men can have fun too, right?
Oh, God, that hurt.
Sorry, not
that
sorry.
That was painful. Oh, my back. Well, once again, good to have you here as always, Kira, except for that last comment. And good to have you here. Thank you for tuning in to the story behind the stories.